welcome to Masala Podcast. Today, I have with me a very special guest, someone whose work I've followed for months and months and months, and I watched lots of her videos and got to sat back and think, oh my God, this person's amazing. I have here Raveena Aurora, who is just incredible. Raveena, welcome to Masala Podcast.
Thank you for having me. This is so exciting. Thank you.
Ravina looks radiant and amazing as she always does in every single video that I've seen. And she's as beautiful. I Here's newsflash: she's as beautiful as she is in video, like on a Zoom call.
So sweet.
Ravina, let's start at the beginning. Tell me a little bit about where you grew up. I know your family moved to the US, and I know that they left Punjab for the Queens after the riots of 1984, which, as we all know, were horrific. So, do you have any memories of growing up and how that was for you?
Yeah, I have just memories of a really large and loud family. And that's like we were, especially when we were in Queens when I was a little kid, it was just all of us on top of each other. Like, because my mom's whole family came with all her brothers and her sisters and her parents. So it was just all of us and being taken care of by everyone. So when I think back to being a very small kid, it's very warm memories of just like lots of chaos because they were also all really young when they had me. I think my mom was like 25, and then all of her
Mm,
brothers and sisters were younger. So it's kind of being raised by people who are even younger than me. So um, it's it's a good thing to look back on.
that's lovely. That's something I love about South Asian culture. Like, it's so communal, right? There's always
Yeah,
like aunties and uncles and chachas and chachis and mommies, and there's lots of people. And I guess that as a child is a wonderful thing because you're never alone and you've always got playmates and you've always got people to, you know, bring you gifts and give you sweets and, things
yeah,
like that, right?
it's honestly amazing. It's honestly amazing.
Do you remember when you first found music or music found you, whichever you want to call it? Do you remember? Do you have what are your earliest memories of music?
Um, my earliest memories are like in the living room, everyone singing uh, old Bollywood songs or ghazals. And I think that's a very common experience uh, amongst us.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so I was really first introduced to a lot of Indian music and then, discovered first all the pop stars like Spice Girls and Britney Spears when I was really young. I think my dad also played a lot of classic rock, like Eagles kind of energy. So,
Hmm.
and like Simon and Garfunkel. So I was introduced to all of that. And then I think when I really fell in love with music in my own way was being introduced to R&B and soul. And um, we had gone to a trip to the Apollo Theater, which is a really iconic music venue in Harlem in New York. And I was just introduced to Ella Fitzgerald and um, just like all these icons of soul music from that era. And I just fell in love, and I had to recreate their voice, and like really study it and really like understand like all the nuances. So I would spend hours in my bathroom just singing and singing and singing to all these soul songs.
When did the music come out of the bathroom and come out to the world? Do you remember the first time you sang or performed for people in
I think
school
I
or at
started,
home?
yeah, I started singing and experimenting with the voice after that trip when I was 10. And
Mm.
then I did like some talent show and when I was 11. And then it was like I caught the bug and was like, I have to do this forever.
did did you ever have that thought that this is what I'm going to go do for a living, or was it very very just it just happened? Do you remember?
No, I was very hell bent on it being what I did for a living. Like to me, it was the only option
Hmm.
from a really young age, like 11. or
Mm.
12. Like as soon as I knew I could sing, I was like, "Oh, I had a very hustler mentality as a kid because I really
Hustler
wanted.
mentality.
Yeah, I did. I really wanted to make my own money and I really wanted to like be independent. And I think it was a lot from me seeing just like how in Indian like traditional familial structures, women are not encouraged to work or like,
Yeah.
just like
Yes, I
told
do.
to put their dreams aside once they have kids.
Mm.
And I think even growing up, all of the women in my family were like, you have to support yourself. You have to have your own job. And they wanted that for me,
Mm.
all the things that they didn't have. So from a really young age, I was like, oh, I have to like start making money as a kid. And I didn't
Mm.
make money until from music until I was 23 or 24. But I still had that mentality since the first years.
I, I could have this little image of you as like 11-year-old Raveena kind of running around saying,
Yeah.
right, I'm going to make money off this.
No, it was ridiculous. It was
No, but I
great.
hear the kind of more serious point of what you're making. I think, like, say, it was very similar in my family. Like, I was the first woman in my family to have an education, have a job. Like, nobody did that before.
Yeah,
But I remember my mum telling me, like, constantly, you have to have a job and you have to have your own money because, in her experience, if she didn't have a life. She didn't have the choice to ask for anything or have an opinion that was any different, right?
it's huge. It's huge. I think
Yeah,
for us, it literally becomes survival. And
absolutely.
it's like a different kind of drive
It
that
is a
enters you.
very different kind of drive. And sometimes I think when you come at it from that survival kind of space, it's almost impossible to switch it off. You're like, oh, I don't need to fight for my survival now. I'm like, no, 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 my body's keeping fighting. You know what I mean? Because it
Yeah,
comes from there. It's like you have to do this to kind of get ahead. So I completely get that.
absolutely. When did that sense of survival like shut off for you? Or it
To be
has it?
honest, it hasn't. It still hasn't. So I
I
think,
see.
and it's pluses and minuses of that as well. It's like the good thing is I don't give up. Like I'll keep going. Somebody says no, I'm like, okay, then I'll find another way to do this and another way. I
Mm,
will keep finding a way forward. So no as an answer doesn't exist. So that's the plus
absolutely.
side. And I'm sure you echo, you wouldn't have got where you have in your career if you'd taken the first no, I would imagine. Right?
I would be in totally different place.
Exactly. Exactly. So what was it like for a young brown woman to
Mm.
want to make it big in the music business? What was that like?
I think definitely delusionally ambitious. like just like just this kind of, I don't know, very, I think I'm because I'm really connected to like spirit and like realms beyond earth. It's
Mm,
given me a source of strength and like belief in magic that is uh like wider than
mm,
maybe what the 3D world suggests for
mm,
us.
mm,
Um yeah, I think, and I still need to draw on it because I think still
mm.
as a brown woman in music, there's so many hurdles
Yeah,
that I constantly have to
yeah,
deal with and
yeah,
feelings that I think like kind of even become more obvious to
yeah,
me as
yeah, yeah,
I progress
yeah,
because um you realize just like how far there is to go for us
yeah, yeah,
in culture,
absolutely.
in the West specifically.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, so I think it's like this like unshaken belief in self and like magic that has guided me through it. But it's definitely come with a lot of challenges.
no, I can absolutely imagine. Could you hold on one second, Ravina? I can hear some sound outside, so I'm just going to shut this door.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah.
I'm back.
Amazing. There's sounds around me, but I think it's just birds.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah. Your sound's absolutely lovely. I could hear like some
okay.
weird music outside. I think there's someone outside, and I hadn't shut the door properly. Now I can't hear anything. Just your voice.
I understand.
What? Um. were some of the things that you were told by, I'm going to say executives in the music business because I don't know what their titles are, but when you turned up and you're like, okay, here's me, I'm this musician, this is my voice, this is what I want to do, what were some of the things they said to you?
I think like a lot of people were encouraging me to be more of a songwriter because they were just like, there's no place in the market for you. Like, there's just, who are you going to appeal to kind
Hmm.
of thing.
Hmm.
And I think there was a lot of questions around like branding and like how are you going to reach people
Hmm.
with this exterior,
Hmm.
which is also ridiculous because I have so much privilege when it comes to like how I present, like as a like lighter skinned North Indian person.
Hmm.
Like there's so much privilege in that.
Yeah.
So if I'm hearing that, like I can't even imagine what
Yeah.
other people are being told, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, but it was a lot about how is this gonna work?
Hmm.
Because there's not many models for it.
Hmm.
And I think maybe the one model we did have was MIA, but
Yeah.
you, music I make is so wildly different than that.
Yes.
So,
It is.
I mean, I love her.
Yeah.
She's
Me
such an
too.
inspiration. But we have different
Yeah.
stories and
Yeah.
different like ways of communicating in art. So I
Yeah.
think when there's not like a precedent, it's kind of hard for people to
Yeah. Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
But business people usually only rely off of they can only rely off the past.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting in music is um, I think something has to be transformed every time
Yeah.
something becomes successful. Like even if it's reminiscent a little bit of something from the past, something new has to be added to the
Yeah.
story and the feeling of it. So uh, you have to trust like the artist's instinct at the end of the day, you know?
Yeah. 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 And I guess if in the creative space you don't allow for something new in music and writing and whatever your art, you just keep regurgitating the same stuff over and over and over again in a million variations, right?
Yeah. And I think that's where I'm struggling the most with the music industry right now because I think sameness in many different aspects is really valued
Yes.
um in like in this moment in culture,
Yes.
and it's kind of like disguised as like all kind of being different, but it's really like selling the same things at the
Yeah.
end of the day. And I think that that's something that we have to fight for as artists, just like not letting our sounds and our culture and our stories be diluted
Yeah.
by the taking over of like technology, algorithms, AI, robots,
Yes.
like fighting for humanness and culture.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is not a conversation about AI, but I've always thought that AI is a tool. It can never take over. Like, it can't create the kind of music you create, you know? That comes
Yeah.
from the source almost. Or write, I think, the kind of things I'm going to write, or paint, or whatever. That will never be. It's just a
Yeah,
tool, I think.
exactly. I really truly believe that art is like you're just a channel for something higher than yourself and like
Yes.
divine. And
Yes.
I don't know how a robot could really do tap into that.
Yes, I think so. Unless they found a connection to the source, I guess.
Yeah, kind of scary, but
That is kind of scary. So I know from reading a couple of your articles that it wasn't easy to kind of become who you've become in the music world, right? You've done all sorts of jobs from like retail to nannying to all kinds of things to fund your music.
yes.
That cannot have been easy. Did you have
Yeah,
any kind of
it
big
wasn't
moments of?
easy.
Am I making the biggest understatement? It wasn't easy, Raveena. Did you ever doubt it though? In any of those jobs where maybe you had a really crap day and you're like, oh my God, I'm tired of doing this. Did you ever have any
I
doubts?
doubt it all the time. I doubt it. Even last night, I was going through doubt. Like it's common, but I think you become stronger and better at talking to that doubt
Mm,
and seeing it as just like a part of yourself that you have to uh, have conversations with every day and like see where that doubt is coming from because it's always related to something in childhood.
So true. Absolutely true. I find that as well a lot. And I think what you just said there, which is investigate where it comes from, right? I have
Yeah.
these moments where like, oh my God, how am I going to do this thing? And then I have to say, okay, Sangeeta, you've done this a million times. Where is this actually coming from? And it'll be something else, like you said, something your mom said when you were 5 years old, or,
Yeah.
something like that. And I guess allowing that doubt some space, but not letting it take over. That's the balance, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I had this really beautiful meditation this morning where I was talking to that doubt and like the words I kept hearing was I trust in my creations. I trust in like that because I've been connecting to this source energy every day, they've been guiding me on the right path with everything I'm doing. Just like the word trust, because I think
Yeah.
like so much of what has been robbed of our bodies as brown people is this inherent sense of trust and safety. Like it's
Yes.
even even if we grew up with say no trauma, you know, it's literally in our
Yeah.
genetics because
Yes.
of our
Yes.
ancestry.
Yes.
Um, which I don't know if I don't know many brown people who didn't grow up with
Without
with
any trauma. I don't know anyone actually.
yeah, so it's like you have to like
Yeah.
create this home in your body, like a new home for your body
Yeah.
that like really understands the feeling of trust. And it's like this daily remembering
Yeah.
that you're safe.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you, growing up, did you see um, any other brown female artists who you thought, oh, wow, I could be that? Apart from MIA?
Apart from my I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think. Um, I think most of my examples were in Bollywood. I think that's why it's been such a big influence for me.
Mm.
Um, I'm trying to think if there's anyone else. Probably Nora Jones, who's
Mm-hmm.
like, um, his dad is Ravi Shankar.
Yeah.
Definitely her, Asha Puthli. But I came to know about Asha Puthli like more later,
Mm.
so I can't say it was as a kid.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I think I actually really just resonated more with like R&B and soul artists
Yeah.
because I was seeing other like women of color who
Mm.
were being so strong and
Mm.
like honest and beautiful in their craft.
Mm.
So I think honestly they really had a huge impact on me. People like Sade, Corinne Billy Ray,
Mm.
all these different women.
What about Bollywood? Or Bollywood music? Who had an
In
influence on you?
Bollywood,
Mm.
definitely Asha Bhosle. I loved her
Mm.
voice.
I did too.
Thought the music
Yeah.
her. Um, Definitely just seeing also the beauty of like Bollywood actresses
Mm.
gave me a lot of comfort because I was seeing my own features reflected back at me,
Mm.
you know,
Mm.
kind of like the bump on the nose and like big
Yeah.
eyes. Like it's, it's not erased
Yeah.
in culture, which is really
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like it's celebrated and held up.
Yeah. Absolutely. I guess within mainstream American culture or British culture, we don't really see that so much, you know. I don't see many women who look like me who are in magazines or on TV or things like that, and I'm guessing it's the same in the States, which
Absolutely.
then makes it really difficult for us to believe that we are beautiful, that we are desirable, that we are anything. Um, and that's really hard. Did you find that as well growing up?
Oh, for sure. For sure. I think that it's very just like very trippy when you can see that everyone else kind of has examples, but you don't see yourself. And
Mm.
I think that why what I do becomes so healing for me, but also other people because they're starting to see that reflected back at them.
Mm.
But I also think there's like so many other voices needed, and there are starting to be many other voices. But I think there's even more needed. There's like I think we're just at the cusp of like this um, cultural revolution for like
Mm.
South Asian diaspora people, and I think so many more stories need to be there because there's so many different types of South Asian people and so many
Yes.
different
Yes.
stories and so many different ways of immigration. Like you know, me and my lineage is just such a small drop in that. So I'm excited for people to like really be able to see themselves reflected in all these different ways and different personalities. I don't know. It's exciting.
It is. 100% agree with you. I feel like this is that moment where South Asian women are kind of really coming into their own. Like everywhere I see your work, whether it's Mindy Kaling, whether it's Mira Jacob, I've been interviewing kind of some more amazing South Asian American women for this series of the
Oh,
podcast.
amazing.
And I
Amazing.
cannot tell you how excited I get when I'm speaking to you because in all your voices, there's this sense of like imminent, things are happening, things are exploding. Like we're doing this and we're doing that, and we're in the White
Yeah.
House and we're, throwing Diwali parties and we're doing all this stuff. And it is so exciting, like even sitting across the pond, watching what's going on right now.
Yeah. And I feel like the same thing is happening in the UK too. It's like
Mm,
I see it happening there as well.
yeah.
It's just, I think that we're probably one of the last major cultures to get our flowers and our space
Mm, mm,
in
yeah.
Western global media.
Yeah.
But I, at the same time, I also think that like the culture we have and the history we have is so dense and like intricate and beautiful. Like even when I go back to India, I'm like, how can I even like I'm just barely scratching the surface of what
Yeah.
I can even understand from
Yeah.
this whole thing. So like I almost don't even mind if it's palatable to the West. Like who cares about that at the end of the
Yeah.
day? It's our own thing. And
Yeah.
if people want to join the party, they will. But we're gonna continue to make art and continue to create no matter what. So
I love
if people want to hop on, they'll hop on.
that. You're very welcome. It's fun.
Yeah.
And but I think something you said there really touched something in me, which is this, you know, incredibly complex, beautiful, intricate history and tradition and culture that we come from, and this very rich, layered, and
Yeah.
depending on whichever part of India you come from, your heritage is Punjabi, mine is from Kerala. There's
Hmm.
just so much to explore, and each time I go back, I just spent like I live in the UK now, but I've spent most of my life in India. I moved here about 18 years ago. And I've not really had much of a connection with Kerala. So this time, very consciously, I went to Kerala for a month and I kind of explored Kerala. And
Yeah.
again, like you said, there's like all these layers that I never knew existed.
Right.
And it's super exciting how that then finds its way into the creative process. So I'm a writer fundamentally. So I'm writing this book, and a lot of stuff from Kerala is finding itself into the book.
Wow. That's
And
amazing.
I feel really kind of privileged and blessed that that's happening. And I can see
Mm.
in your work, like everything I've ever heard you do or watched your video, it's so Indian in the most beautiful way. Like the colors, the textures, your voice, the that it's a very Indian sound in my mind,
Yeah,
It's a fusion, obviously. It's not,
yeah.
and that's why I think it works so beautifully and it is so unique. But the soul of it is very, very Indian. It's rooted in like, for me, I don't know, when I listen to you, it's like Kavali and it's like Carnatic music. It's this old, this very rich source of
Yeah.
music, and somehow,
And it's rooted in romance, you know?
yes,
Like,
exactly,
and I think
exactly.
we come from a really romantic culture.
We do, absolutely. When you were talking about Bollywood, like I remember that growing up in Mumbai, like I'd go to sleep with like this little radio, and they
Mm.
would always play. You're way too young to remember this. Something called Binaka Geet Mala, which would always be like Mohammed Rafi and Lata
Wow,
Mangeshkar. And at about 11, I think it was 10:30 or 11, and I would always fall asleep to that. And I
that's
always had
so
this
cute.
beautiful sense of like peace and safety in my body when I was listening to that.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's so
So I
beautiful.
suddenly remember that. Now that's really
That's so
beautiful.
I
So
love that.
I get the feeling, Ravina, that spirituality is a big part of your life, um,
Mm.
and your kind of, the way you live, the way the music you produce also. Could you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. I think that it guides everything I do. I think that if I didn't have it, I'd probably be like more of a crazy person, and I just would like be really ungrounded. And I think I talk about it so much because it um it's just like a very like transformative and like powerful source for me. And I hope that like by being open about it, that people can start to discover that in themselves. Because I really think like so many of the answers that we look for in our daily life are just found in silence and like trance.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's it. I talk about it a lot because I go back to that source every day. Like I
Mm.
have a really intense like meditation, like breathing practice that I try to do every day. And um, I think when you're like in that mindset every
Mm.
day, you just want to like share,
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And how does it? I feel like it does. I feel like I know the answer, but I want to ask you anyway. How does that part of you, that connection with the source, tie in with your music?
Mm, I think that like a lot of people use my music to relax and
Mm.
to just like find find like a little sense of like comfort in their day. And I think that I'm very intentional about the space that I'm in when I'm making music. Like I try to keep it as a very sacred space and make sure that I'm really present, make sure that each word is very like carefully picked, each song is carefully picked. Like there's just like a lot of intention that goes into it. And obviously the sounds that we choose are like intentionally soothing. So I think that all of that combined um, makes for this kind of like ethereal experience
Experience.
for the listener.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I also think that when we listen to you, we almost get your connection with, say, the divine or the source, whatever you want to call it. And I think we pick up on it. We might not know
Oh,
what it is or understand it or be able to verbalize it, but that's what it feels like.
that's really sweet. Thank you.
Yeah. I feel that. I really feel that.
Thank you. That means a lot to me because I think this next project I'm working on is even more rooted in that. And um, oh, I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about it.
It's okay. You've not given away any details. You just said it's
Yeah.
rooted in spirituality, which we can say is true of any of your work, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's fine. Your secret's safe. Nothing's
I'm just
out.
like so in the world of it right now.
Yeah.
So I'm
No, no, no. I
very
cannot,
excited to let it
cannot
go.
wait. Cannot wait.
Yeah.
So, the other question or the other thing I wanted to talk to you about was how a lot of your music comes from your own personal experiences, right?
Mm.
And you've explored like all sorts of things from identity to pain to loss to mental health struggles through your music. Was that something you intentionally set out to do, or is that something that kind of organically happened?
Mm, I think that because of the way I started writing music, it that's just like kind of the style that developed, like this kind of journal, like very vulnerable style.
Mm.
It's really because I was kind of going through some hard things while growing up and didn't really have a space to talk about them. But when I put them in songs, I could release what I was
Yeah.
feeling and kind of like say my truth
Mm.
in the music. Um, so I've been using it as a form of therapy since I was very little, and I think that that just kind of progressed naturally now. Um, but yeah, I it's fun because at the core, I really love pop music, and I think that I also have a lot of fun just making pop music that's a little more like universal or
Yeah.
they'd enjoy. And I'm starting to write a lot for other people now too, and I think that's been a great outlet to like get that side of me out too. Because I think like not every song has to be the most serious thing.
Yes, 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 absolutely. But the fact that you can do that kind of almost processing of pain, of your creative being this cathartic experience, I think there's a
Mm.
lot of value in that, and I don't know if we recognize that enough in the world, you know?
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
so, does music make things easier in that way for you?
In my in my life?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's my love. Like it's like my whole life. Like if I didn't have it, I don't know, I wouldn't be the same person
Mm.
at all.
Mm.
It's just it's guided my life into such a beautiful place and I have to like thank it and celebrate it the same way that I thank just like being a soul in this body, you know. It's just like a part of I guess like my destiny was to like be very intertwined with music. So I just feel very grateful that I really like was able to come into that in this lifetime, and I think that it was just like part of like my purpose in
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love your last album, which is
Oh,
called
thank you.
Ashes Awakening, which is about a Punjabi space princess. I loved that. I read that and I was like, oh my God, what is this? I love it. Love the colors. I love the kind of prints and textures of the music. You know, it's absolutely amazing.
Thank
Talk to me
you.
about how that came to be.
Hmm. It really came out of like the pandemic boredom. I think that there was there was so much time to just kind of be bored in the same that way that we were as children and like really explore uh, our imagination in that kind of way. So that album was a lot about reconnecting with inner child and
Mm.
having a conversation with my identity that I musically that I think
Yeah.
I hadn't really had before. Um, and that was like part of the awakening in a sense.
Mm.
Um, yeah, that album was really ambitious and like really imaginative and a whole world. And I'm really proud of like how deep the world was explored,
Mm.
and how deep the character was explored.
Yeah.
I just I'm very into um like very like culty things like the
Mm.
gorillas, like how they like create an entire narrative and
World,
world and
universe.
story.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love doing that for certain projects of mine.
Mm.
It's really fun.
Yeah. 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 And did that come from that you were saying this kind of inner child work? Did Is that
Mm.
where it came from?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think that it's a sci-fi story and it's
Mm.
like a sci-fi story rooted in also just like spirituality. So
Mm,
I think it was definitely partly inspired by sci-fi movies I love growing up,
mm.
magic surrealism, but also just like spiritual stories.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like because I grew up in a very Sikh household and
yeah,
you're just told stories that are very magical, you know.
yeah, yeah.
Um, it's kind of like its own sci-fi in a sense. Um, although maybe I'll get in trouble for saying that. But you know,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
yeah, it's that belief in magic that I think
yeah,
is very like inherent in just a lot of
yeah.
people from our region. And I think
Yes.
that when you go, um, especially when I go back home to India, I can really feel it that there's no like questioning of the magic.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of questioning of the magic in the West. And
Yes.
when I go back to India, it's just understood and it's just like revered.
Yeah. No, I get it absolutely. I came to that quite late in life, funny enough. It's only now that I'm starting to feel that magic and trust the magic of where I came
Oh,
from. And I can
yeah.
now, I have like, I think maybe in the last couple of years, I think developed this, what I think of as a connection to the divine that I know, from my own
Yeah,
culture, from my own heritage.
that's
And
amazing.
yeah, it's been incredibly powerful. And magic is exactly what it is. And every time I go back, like you, I see how effortless it is for them.
Yeah.
This kind of, whether it's a little temple that's like the tree becomes a temple in the middle of a road, and
Yes.
people are worshipping, right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And the
Every
simplicity.
like simple moments are like
Yes.
a chance
Yes.
to like pray and like
Yes.
remember.
Yes.
And it's
Exactly. I think
amazing.
so as well. And how also like we have the divine in like the sun and the moon, and we're saying eclipse, and we're saying this, and we're saying
Yeah, yeah,
all of these are treated as kind of divine occurrences, and they are really.
yeah. Yeah,
It's
they
just
are
that
divine
they are,
occurrences.
but we live
Yeah.
here now in this very rational kind of world, and oh, but that's just the lunar phase of the moon or whatever, and
Yeah,
you've
yeah, yeah.
stripped it of all the magic, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's quite
And
sad.
like all the poetry
And
behind
all the
it.
poetry, yeah, exactly. Your music, I also find, is very sensual, very soft, very
Oh,
sensual.
thank you.
And it feels very intimate. It almost feels like you're the only person listening when you're listening to you.
Mhm. That's really sweet. Thank
Is
you.
is that a reflection of who you are, do you think?
Yeah,
Is
definitely.
sensuality a big part of who you are?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm just like a true romantic. Like I try to like see like catch the beauty in the ordinary
Mm,
and I I want to like it's very I guess it's very like Libra and like Venusian like wanting to be surrounded by beauty and like wanting to like be art just as yourself like not even making art,
mm,
like becoming the piece of art. So
mm,
I think
mm.
yeah, that like drive for like embodying beauty
Yeah, yeah,
and not just like you know like beauty like plastic surgery kind of beauty.
yeah. But actual
um
real beauty. Yeah,
yeah, like something like glowing inside
yeah,
of you.
yeah. No, I get that. I guess the idea of beauty in the West is a very Western idea. It's very kind of blonde and skinny, right?
Yeah, or it's
And
also changing to be like a little different. It's very like manufactured, I think now,
yes, it is.
even beyond blonde and
Yeah,
skinny.
so you're
Very
right.
like
Yeah.
scary, honestly.
Yeah, it is. It is. And
Yeah.
what's scary is that we don't find that weird. We've normalized that.
Yeah, I
And
think
I
it's
think
really
that's,
concerning how
yeah.
much young teen women are like on the internet and like I wasn't exposed to so much like surgery knowledge and talk. Like I didn't know any surgery really beyond like rhinoplasty when I was 14. But now there's like 30 700 surgeries you can get, and like everyone is exposed to them when they're 12.
Mm,
I can't like imagine
mm,
having all that information in my
mm.
head
Yeah,
so young. It's
yeah.
really scary.
It is really, really scary.
Yeah.
And I'm a lot older than you. So I grew up in a time where in India in the 80s, and there were no, there was no digital TV, there was no internet, there was none of that. And in so many ways, I'm so grateful because I
Mm.
never looked at myself like it just wasn't a thing. You know,
Wow.
I just never did. I was, I don't know, reading my books because my head was always in books or
When you were a
playing or,
teenager?
yeah, when I was a teenager, because there was no
What a
need to
blessing.
kind of
That's
look at
amazing.
myself. And it's only now that I think, oh my God, I'm so grateful for that because I never thought
Mm.
about what I looked like. It just wasn't a thing until maybe like when I turned 16, maybe that's when I started to kind of be a bit conscious of my body and my looks. But before that, I just didn't really think about it because nobody thought about it. What a blissful world, right?
Amazing. What a different world.
I know. Exactly.
Amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think I didn't really have that obsession until I was like 18. And even
Mm,
then, actually, I think like the self-consciousness of how I looked in my life really came after I started being like photographed a lot. And
mm,
that was when I really cared about it for the
mm,
first time. I think before that, I was just like, I am what I am.
mm,
I don't care.
mm.
Um, and I really take inspiration from that younger self that was just like so like
Liberating, isn't
yeah, like
it?
liberated
Yeah,
really.
exactly. Exactly. So there's inherently, there seems to be a conflict between being sexual and being spiritual. I don't
Mm.
think there is one. I actually think they're the same. I just think,
Yeah, I think they're the
you
same.
know, but we're not, when, if you talk about Tantra or yoga, everything comes from the yoni, our
Yeah, yeah,
creative
yeah.
energy,
I
like
was
our
literally about to
ideas.
say that. Like
Yeah,
every creation and like sexuality,
yeah,
art all come from the same energy
yeah.
center. So it's like
It's the same thing.
all the same. Yeah.
Yeah. But the outside world, whether that's Western, Eastern, whatever, has a real problem with that, where
Mm.
being sexual is a different thing and being spiritual is like completely different, and you cannot have the two together.
Yeah, yeah,
Where do
yeah.
you think
It's
that
like,
comes from,
whoa,
that discomfort?
whoa. I never thought of it in that way. Like the dissonant, the
Hmm.
disconnect there.
Hmm.
Um, whoa. Where do I think it comes from? I mean, probably like Puritan ideals,
Hmm.
like like colonial kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
shit that was
Yeah. I don't know the answer either. I
passed
just sort of
on to it. I
thought
don't
about
know.
it. Yeah.
Um, I think really it comes from the need to control women's bodies.
Absolutely.
I think that's where it comes from. Like
Absolutely.
being, I think like because women are so beautiful and like hold, like they like harbor so much magic and sensuality within themselves.
Yeah.
Like I think men of the past and probably still the present too are really intimidated by that, and it's you need to like be like, oh well, you know you're only beautiful from 15 to 30,
Yeah.
and then after
Yeah.
that you're done.
Yeah.
Like these like dumb ideals
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
true. Like
Yeah.
some of the most beautiful women I've seen are like 60s, 70s,
Mm.
like
Mm.
it doesn't matter, like the whole age thing that's
Yeah.
put on
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
the the obsession with features, the obsession with how we present our sexuality. It's all an effort to um, make this thing that is so wide and expansive smaller and um, a, like a bit available to commodify.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's almost like if you can tell a woman that to access her own sexuality, she's got to spend all this money on all these products, right? And
Yeah.
then she's got to be really, really thin, and her hair's
Yeah.
got to be like this. And that's the only time she's allowed to access something that is within her own body.
Yes.
Isn't that
Yeah.
bonkers?
It is. It is insane. My really good friend Bobo has a amazing podcast called Bobo's Void, and she makes these amazing TikTok videos where she explores questions like this. and she said, I'm probably going to paraphrase really badly, but she was like, beauty is unattainable for women. It's something that you have to work on your whole life.
Yes.
And like
Yes.
you there's no like end in sight, you know?
Yeah.
And for men, it's like you can attain success after you've got the girl and got the money. So there's like an end.
Yeah.
But for women,
Yeah.
like the the attainment of perfection never ends. And
So
like
true.
as you age, like you're just like
You're like
running
running
up,
on a treadmill, trying to catch up.
yeah, like running on a treadmill or like
Yeah.
running up this hill that's like sand and it's like
Yeah.
all like
Yeah.
falling away from
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like once we realize that it's actually all bullshit, that's when we'll be free.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope it happens soon, but I don't know if it is going to. But it starts with kind of conversations like this, I think.
Yeah.
So, Ravina, you talk about being queer. You're very open with your sexuality. Was it a tough journey to get to this part to where you're able to talk about it?
Hmm. Yeah, I think so for sure. I think that kids are coming into their sexuality a lot younger now, and it's so beautiful and it's so normalized. It's like, it's not like that different to be gay. Like everyone is kind of gay. And definitely when was growing up, that was not the case.
Mm.
And I really only came out when I think was 24 or something, which is late in generations younger than me. And it came with a lot of like scary feelings, like feelings like, am I going to be abandoned? Am I going to be ridiculed? Mostly by like um, the the more traditional brown people in my life. I wasn't really
Mm.
worried about anyone else.
Yeah.
Um, and I think ways I still struggle with it is biphobia. I think there's a
Mm.
lot of
Yeah. There is.
yeah,
There is. And did you get any pushback from either family or friends or fans or?
for sure. I got both biphobia, I think, from like some people my age or fans, and then I think I definitely got a lot of pushback from family and a lot of like hurtful things that were said by
Mm.
older generations. But um, I'm not gonna like expose them or talk about them
Mm.
here because I
Mm.
think that
Yeah.
they're just learning at their own pace,
Yeah.
and I've done a lot of like forgiving. Um, they just come from different
And
times.
the way I see it is, they've not had the opportunity to learn any
Yeah.
better. We live in a world
Yeah,
where
and
we've
so many
learned.
of them are gay themselves.
Exactly,
Like,
exactly. It just wasn't an option. So then
yeah,
sometimes the thing you hate about yourself is the thing you hate in other people, I think, you
yeah,
know? So I think
yeah,
it's a reflection of them rather than anything else.
yeah. I mean, being queer is beautiful, but it's also a journey, and it requires. I think the biggest thing that it asks of me is asking how the patriarchy makes its way into my relationships. And I think with all my relationships in women, um, the patriarchy has interfered in some way, and we've had to like have a lot of conversations about the ways that it does. And
Could you give me an example of how patriarchy?
I think especially as bi women, um, we just have to like really take a deep look at ourselves about like like why we may want a man in our life, and like
Hmm.
you know
Hmm.
it's something that I'm still working out in my head. I
Hmm.
don't know if I can still like completely like talk about it in a way that makes sense,
Hmm.
but especially in like bi and like poly
Hmm.
spaces with dating multiple people, it's a lot about like prioritization and
Hmm.
like ways that we maybe take care of men and like make
Hmm.
excuses for them
Hmm.
sometimes, and exploring that and
Hmm.
exploring the ways where we can be more giving to each other as women,
Hmm.
um, and just like prioritizing those relationships. Um, it's really interesting. And then in turn, in having all those conversations, I think it helps me have healthier relationships with men because then
Mm.
I'm able to like really break down maybe like traditional patterns that I
Yes.
find myself in them and really analyze like, am I exploring something because of daddy issues or like am I
Mm.
exploring something because out of like pure love for this person?
Mm. I like that. Is it, are these daddy issues or is it love issues? I love
Yeah, exactly.
that.
It's so complex. It's really complex.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it's also very difficult to kind of analyze how much of our behavior is conditioning that we carry,
Yeah.
how much of it is me and how much of it is the world that's told me it's this way, right? It's hard.
Yeah. I think it gets even more confusing when it's wrapped up in sexuality, which is
Yes.
something that is meant to be like pleasure and joy.
Mm.
And I think like you don't want to like question your sexuality or like why you're into certain
Mm.
things.
Mm.
Um, but it's all connected.
It is. It is. It absolutely is. So, you, Raveena, were the first woman of Indian descent to perform as a solo artist at Coachella.
Yeah.
How did that feel?
It was so surreal. I still remember that weekend a lot. Um, I think that also it's kind of funny because I feel like I shouldn't have been the first. Like I feel like it
Hmm.
was it was
Yeah.
2020. Like the first probably should have happened many, many years ago.
But it
Um,
didn't, and you were the first.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it was it was definitely an honor, and it was amazing seeing so many South Asian people this year performing as well, like Diljit and Joy Crooks and Ali Sethi and like all these incredible J Paul, like all these people I love. There's like so much more representation this year, which was amazing.
And I think I have a feeling we're on the cusp of, like we were saying, more and more of us, I think.
Yeah,
You can't be getting away from brown people anymore. We're
yeah,
going to be everywhere.
I agree.
um, Something that I was looking at on Instagram, on your Instagram feed today, I think when you were promoting the last album, it really struck me. You were talking about healing. You were talking about healing being a non-linear process. Like there's no, and the way I was thinking about it's not like one day you go, right, I'm healed now. It's all well.
Yeah.
Like that never happens. It's like, and this comes from my own experience because I'm bang in the middle of this, where it's like layers and layers and layers get peeled off, and you kind of understand where pain comes from, a specific pain, and then where the resolution of that pain is. And it's this
Mm,
constant process where you peel and peel and peel to get to the gold of who you originally were before life
yeah,
happened, right?
absolutely. Yeah.
And I wonder if you could talk about this a little bit. I felt like you had something to say with that.
Mm, yeah, I mean, I think that that's kind of like maybe what I've signed up for in this lifetime
Mm.
is the commitment to that nonlinear healing and the commitment to like finding that truth of like who I was before birth.
Mm.
And I love how you frame that. I think that's so beautiful. That's really, you just have a beautiful way with words.
Thank you so much. It's for me as well. It's been a very profound journey. You know what I do. Like you, I feel like I was put on this earth to do this work for kind of
Yeah.
our women. Like that's why I'm here. And it took
Yeah.
me
Absolutely.
decades to find it, and now I finally have found it.
That's amazing. It's really inspiring
So
to see.
thank you. So I feel very blessed, like you do with your music, I do with this work.
Oh, that's really sweet. I have chills.
So yeah, so this is what I hope to keep doing. But a huge, huge, huge part of it is processing pain, going through healing, understanding yourself,
Absolutely.
understanding how experiences have shaped you, the people have shaped you in your life,
Absolutely.
forgiving, moving on. It's all so, so, so critical because if you don't do that, your work isn't
Yeah.
going to be amazing. Like the creative
Yes.
product that you create, whatever that might be, podcast, I'm writing a book, all of these things, they will reflect your journey.
Yeah, because people can sense your fear
Yes.
in so many ways. Like you don't have to
Yes.
even say it. You can be acting like the most confident person in the world, but
Yeah.
if you bring fear and like
Judgment.
judgment into the process, people are
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah. Yeah.
sense it.
Yeah. And there's also, I think, when you are in the middle of that process, there's almost like a light in you. Like I can see it on
Yeah.
your face. There's a light. And I think people, even if they don't understand and they themselves are not spiritual, they pick up on it,
Yeah.
and there's a connection that happens. And
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm making any sense, but I feel like that's what's happening. That's the magic when people connect with
Yeah.
work.
Yeah. My friend was saying this really beautiful thing, and she was saying that like with anything in this life, whether it's beauty, whether it's art, whether it's like a business, like it's all about confidence. And people can, when we go online, we're consuming other people's confidence.
Mm.
And that just really resonated with me.
Yeah.
Shout out.
So, do you feel like there's more representation now of South Asian women, of brown women in music, in fashion, in culture in the US? Do you feel like that's
Mm,
changing now?
a little bit. I think there needs to be more. I think that like yeah, I think there could be a lot more. There needs
I
to be a lot more.
agree. I
Yeah, I
agree.
think it's a good start.
It's a good
But
start, but we need another couple of hundred of us, I think, before
yeah,
it makes
exactly.
any change.
Exactly. I think it's actually exciting because I think that our children and our children's children are going to look back on this time and be like, wow. Like, I hope my children are going to see so much of themselves in art and in culture, and they're going to be like, oh wow, my mom was really at the she's like from the ancient ages. She's from the beginning of all that. You know.
She was there when it started.
Yeah. And I wasn't even there when it
Mm,
started. Like it
mm,
started hundreds of years before me,
mm.
but I think that we're still very much at the beginning.
We are.
We're still like it's still being shaped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's really important, though, that you talk about children, but I think it's important for little brown girls in small towns and big cities and to see people like you performing at Coachella on their TV screens, in magazines, on their Spotify playlists. It's really, really important because unless they see people who look like them and have names like them and sound a little bit like them, they will never be able to imagine themselves in those spaces.
Mm, I
So,
think it's yeah, I think you're so right. But I also think there's like a really beautiful thing about just um like something that can be taught more to all of us is just like confidence and like belief in self and belief in one's creations without the need for like Western approval or like global
mm,
approval. I think
mm,
that I think that's something that as women of color we can also like
mm,
advocate for.
yeah.
Like actually you have that power inside of you,
Mm,
even if you know you don't need to like aspire to something to
yeah.
like awaken
Yeah.
inside of you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get that. I get that. What you're
But
saying is you
I
don't,
do think what you're
yeah.
saying is
Yeah.
really true and powerful as well.
Yeah. I think what you're saying is you don't need to be at Coachella to be feeling like you're a success in the world, right? That
Exactly.
confidence has to
Or
come.
yeah, yeah. Or like invest in your creations and
Yeah.
invest in your art.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I think that's like why I love doing things like the grants that I'm starting to do because it's just like we should be feeding and like encouraging artists
Mm,
uh, of all spaces and all communities. Like
absolutely.
like it like art is part of um ritual. It's just part of like daily life. It's part of like spirit,
Mm,
and it shouldn't be reserved to people who can like make money off of it.
yeah. No, 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 I absolutely hear you.
Yeah.
So say 5-year-old Ravina was sitting here in the room with us and we were having a chat. What would you say to her?
Oh, that's so cute. I would say, mm, I would say that you are like the magic that you're seeing in, because I used to like talk to trees a lot. Like I would say that the magic that you're feeling in nature is very real,
Mm,
and that it's going to be like a source of inspiration for your whole life. So go towards that. And I'm just really excited to have my own baby and like really help attune them to like the magic of nature.
absolutely. Talking about trees, on Saturday, there's a forest about an hour from where I live. So I had this
Oh,
real craving to go to the forest. I've been thinking this for like weeks. I'm like, I really want to go there. And I
that's so
went
sweet.
there and I lay on the bark of this tree. Like it was like a dead tree, it was like an old tree. And I just lay
Wow.
like head to toe. And I can't tell you how amazing it felt.
Aw.
And I was there for like maybe a couple of hours. It was like a reasonable day in London, which we don't get a lot of. But there's this, I don't know, this feeling of being held by nature. Like that's what it felt like. I felt like the leaves were holding me. I could see the
Aw.
leaves up top, and the
That's
bark of
so
the
cute.
tree was holding me. And like I was having a
Wow.
difficult day that day, and I just felt I needed to be held, and I was
Yes.
held. So that's what it.
Yeah.
So I completely get what you're saying.
I'm literally just about to go to the forest after this.
Lovely. There's something
But
beautiful there.
it's really amazing. I moved a lot closer to it, so it's like a 5-minute walk for me. It's really nice.
That's wonderful. Here's to many more forest walks for you, I
Yes.
think. Finally, um, anything you'd like to say to listeners of Masala Podcast? There's loads of South Asian women who'll be listening, who'll be fans of yours or not fans of yours, but is there anything that you want to say to them?
Ooh, I would want to say that um like your desires and your creativity and like the things that bring you the most joy in the world are the things to chase after and nourish, and whatever that looks like for you. It it could look like pursuing it as a career. It could also look like just like making time for it consciously in your day, and like setting aside like 20 minutes or like an hour to nourish that part of yourself. I was at a nail salon like 2 weeks ago. This is relevant. I was at a nail salon 2 weeks ago, and it was like a really tiny, like rundown place in like some random neighborhood. And I saw all this like incredible detailed art on the wall that all looked like it was from the same artist. And I was asking the person who was doing my nails, like, who made this? And she was like, I made these at night. After work is done, I go and work on my paintings for like hours and hours and hours. And I
Wow.
was just like so inspired by her. Like, she's like
Yeah.
an incredible artist. And like her husband had like was just like celebrating her in a way by like putting
Hanging
up
them all
all
up. Yeah.
art on the walls, and like she like sells it to customers, and I was just super inspired by that, just like how she just like gives herself to art
Yeah.
whenever she can. It was so
Yeah.
cool.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
So everybody go create is what you're saying,
Yeah.
right? Ravina, it's been the most, I don't know, uplifting, beautiful, joyous conversation.
Oh, you're so sweet. This has been
Thank
really
you.
nice.
Thank you
Like such a
so
great way to
much.
start the day.
Thank you so much for being on Masala Podcast.
I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. This was amazing.